Well, Tony Kevin, thanks so much for sitting down to chat with me about your new book, Crunch Time. I guess the main question is, writing something which is so topical and so immediate in terms of what's just happened and documenting that in the book, what was your main outcome that you were aiming for in writing this book?
Paul, I'm aiming to get Australian mainstream readers, which means the parents or grandparents of most of the people listening to your program, understanding that climate change is real, that it's dangerous, and that it's going to affect our children and grandchildren. We're a strange society. We're like lemmings. We follow our leaders even when they take us over cliffs. When we have a leader like Paul Keating who wants to achieve transformative change in the Australian economy, they can do tremendous things because we're a society that works by consensus. But when we have a leader like John Howard or Kevin Rudd, who are essentially status quo leaders, we sit in the status quo like the boiling frog in a slowly heating saucepan of water and slowly boil to death. And I guess what I'm trying to do with this book is to give that frog a jolt, to say, jump out of the water, do something about your predicament, because it's coming, and unless we take serious action as a nation, as a national economy, as a national society, we're going to be in that slowly boiling water, and our kids are going to be impoverished, which means your generation, are going to be impoverished and lead dangerous and risky lives. This is the amazing thing. I mean, I can quote you a slab of speech-making from Kevin Rudd that mirrors exactly what I say in my book. Kevin Rudd knows this stuff. He's on record as saying it. And yet, he fiddles at the edges of the problem. In terms of his practical day-to-day work as a politician, he might as well be a climate change denier.
How is it that he's able to, because I guess he came to power 2007 on the platform and the rhetoric of solving climate change, of combating it, yet you argue that in fact he's arguing that, but if you look below the surface, the rhetoric does not speak true of the actual actions.
Absolutely. The actual actions show that the rhetoric has been phony, and they're very strong words, and this is perhaps part of the reason why my book is not getting the mainstream media attention I would like it to have.
It's all right. I think the Inquiry is getting mainstream, so you're getting there.
Well, I'm on the Inquiry, and that's a terrific start. And I'm delighted to be interviewed by a person of your generation, because you are precisely the people to whom this means something. And
well, this is what I figure, because like older people, they may just not care because they're not going to have to deal with the problem. Yes. I intend to live for a very long time, yes. So I don't want this climate change business mucking up my life.
Well, let me tell you where you'll be in 2060 if we go on with business as usual. There's a 20 to 30% probability, which is a high probability. I mean, I wouldn't cross the street if I knew I had a 20 to 30% probability of being run over. That by 2060, the sea level around Australia will be 1 metre higher. That will be accompanied by regular major storm surges. Cyclonic storms will have moved south along the coast, down from northern Queensland through central Queensland, New South Wales. I don't think we'll have cyclones in Melbourne, but we'll certainly have them all the way down to probably Sydney. Inland Australia, we're going to lose most of our rainfall. But we'll be living on the narrow strip of highland country between the coast and the inland desert that still has enough rainfall to sustain food growing. We'll be greatly impoverished. We will have nothing like the standard of living we have now.
Look, I think also an interesting focus is just the role of the individual, or indeed society, because I guess it comes down to, individuals trying to make a difference in terms of their carbon pollution in what they do versus the industry. And you argue that a 5% reduction, really, that'll be accounted for in what individuals have already done anyway. So I guess the question then is, what more can individuals do to have an influence?
I think individuals have to do three things. The first obligation is to clear your mind of crap and to be informed of the truth about climate change. The second thing, obviously, is to act in your personal life in ways that attempt to be responsible. I flew here today for this interview. Obviously, I'm acting in one way as a polluter. There are some things you have to go on doing. The third thing, though, is to don't let the government put the monkey on your back that climate change is entirely about you. It's not. It's about you as an individual, but it's also about you as a social being. It's about what you demand of our government in terms of the big infrastructural settings of our society, which you and I as individuals can't do anything about. We can't determine the pace at which Australia moves away from coal towards renewable energy. If we think that by using green bags and changing to incandescent light bulbs and things like that, and putting more insulation on the roof, that we're really making a difference, to be blunt, we're making a very small difference. So we've got to work on the three fronts at once: personal action, political action, and knowledge. And if we do that, we're making a difference.
Can we look at the politics, just, I guess, summing up now, looking at the ETS is now been reintroduced to Parliament, having been defeated some 3 months ago. What do you think the best course of action is? Do you think it should be just defeated and a new thing created, or do you think Turnbull's negotiations for amendments is worthwhile?
I think the ETS should go through, simply because it establishes the accounting systems for serious carbon counting later down the track. Once you've got a 5% ETS in place, you can rack it up to a 30% or a 40% when the politics are sufficiently mature to enable us to do that. So I don't agree with those people who say it's best to abandon the ETS. In any case, it's out of our hands. Turnbull has got enough of the coalition behind him to make the ETS a little bit browner, which Rudd doesn't really care about, and it will go through, I'm sure, before the end of this year, because both Rudd and Turnbull want it to go through. They both really want to put the climate change monster aside and get on with other politics, which is really more interesting to both of them.
And then, so I guess Copenhagen, which is in December, which is where the world meets, and hopefully they're going to decide basically a new agreement to replace Kyoto, which is finishing up.
I'm a bit of a radical on that too. I tend to overturn established ideas in all of these areas. I don't think there's going to be a grand global bargain on climate change because it's just too hard to achieve. I agree with the Prime Minister on that. It's going to be very hard to achieve a grand global bargain. What Copenhagen's about is to get some common aspirational statements on board to say this is the direction which we're all trying to go. And then it's up to individual countries to make their own climate energy solutions as quickly as they possibly can.